Welcome to today's webinar conversation featuring Sony Innovation Studios, AIT, and Pavilion, and focused on the technology needs of the media and entertainment industry. The session today will provide a glimpse into how Sony Innovation Studios is leveraging storage technologies to bring fundamentally new capabilities to a rapidly changing entertainment industry.
Hi, welcome to the webinar, Value Creation and Leveraging IT in the Ever-Changing Media and Entertainment Landscape. I'm Amy Love, Chief Marketing Officer for Pavilion Data Systems, and it's our pleasure to have you join us today to learn more about innovations in IT and M&E. With media and entertainment, IT is an integral part of the product offering. Fundamentally, it's about space, time, and money. From a space perspective, there's a big difference going from 4K to 8K. 4K doubles the resolution and quadruples the number of pixels. That fundamentally changes the storage requirements. From a time perspective, working serially just isn't realistic. Post-production requires parallel processing for dubbing, sound effects, color correction, among a host of other post-production actions. And from a money perspective, can you attract and retain the best talent, and can you hit the release dates? In this webinar, we're going to be addressing three key areas: the M&E environment, needs and challenges, use cases for M&E today and tomorrow, really an industry focus, and then thirdly, Sony Innovation Studios, the specifics. Joining us today for value creation and leveraging IT to address a rapidly changing media and entertainment landscape are Billy Russell, VP and CTO for Alliance Integrated Technology, Michael Pearce, Manager of Production Systems, Sony Innovation Studios, and VR Satish, CTO and co-founder, Pavilion Data Systems. Gentlemen, welcome. We're super excited, gentlemen, to be able to talk about such an exciting industry with so much change happening and the opportunity to leverage IT at a new level. So let's get the first round started. Michael, I'm going to start off with you. As we look at M&E and the needs and the challenges facing the industry, why does technology play such a critical role in bringing value forward to media and entertainment organizations?
Thank you. Really, technology and M&E are one and the same. They feed off each other. They rely on each other. And and M&E is really operationalizing technology in new ways and creative ways. And in that respect, pushing both industries forward. It's critical to be at the cutting edge of technology in media and entertainment, especially as you say the technological requirements advance. As quality increases, as throughput increases, as interactivity increases, technology is critical to the media and entertainment sector.
I was at your studios a few months ago. I believe it was Cinematic Studios 7 or something like that.
Stage 7.
And Stage 7. And it blew me away seeing the kind of technology and kind of how you guys record something with several cameras and processing all that data at almost raw resolution, storing it, processing it, doing editing work, and combining all this to produce, realistic images. I've always been thinking that, fintech, government, these are the guys, or now automotive, these are the guys in media and technology. And I would say, wow, what do you guys do? And I think you're at the pinnacle of storage demands, in the sense you demand more in terms of new ways of thinking. And so, I would like you to elaborate a little bit more on what's stretching the limits, and where do you want to see folks, industries like ours, especially in storage or in compute or graphics or whatever it is. Where would you like us to help you
Sure,
so that we can take it forward?
definitely, yeah. As you said, based on when you visited us at Stage 7, one of our focuses and one of the key driving technologies that we work with and develop is volumetric virtual production, which is, in our opinion, a game changer in the M&E space. But as you say, many cameras, many perspectives. We think of it as you look at a picture, but you can move around. It's photorealistic. However, it's interactive. It's something that has not been truly done before at the scale that we do it. And to that respect, the storage requirements, the compute requirements, this technology has only been made possible by the development of such technologies. With Pavilion, the storage, not just size, but the throughput, the access, our ability to iterate on that. As we advance, as we get higher quality, as we become more and more realistic, the size of data just increases. The amount of compute just increases. And unlike traditional post-production, where you will shoot in front of a green screen, you may have a camera where you can monitor the scene and get an idea of what it's like. With volumetric virtual production, you see through the camera the final scene. You see through the camera exactly what will come out in post, with maybe a little editing. And that's only been made possible with this type of technology. And in order to expand something like that, the true traditional bottleneck to that would be, of course, compute and storage. And thus advances in that technology allow us to increase quality, to increase that type of content, make larger scenes, make bigger assets, add more interactivity into those assets. And so having the ability to load large scenes, have the ability to process very large scenes in real time, because remember, this is in real time. That's really the only limiting factor to the overall quality, to the overall experience.
I think historically it used to be storage and then compute, and today we're combining the two, right? We're computing as we're storing. So this type of processing of data is combining the two worlds. So I think what we've put together as far as a solution, the ability to bring the compute and the storage together during that process is critical.
So Billy, curious from your standpoint, as a solution partner to the leading M&E organizations, what are you hearing regarding the needs and the challenges at a macro level for your clients as they're looking to solve things through IT? What are you hearing and seeing even beyond Sony Innovation Studios?
I think there's similarities in what they've discovered with the performance of the storage solution and the compute side of it. So there's such a mass amount of data that's coming into the world as far as whether it's IoT or camera data from a set. There's just the bulk of data is massive. And the desire to harvest that data in real time drives the need for more performance, more capacity, obviously density, and the compute side of that to say in post-production, be able to automate some of the processes around the production side. So whether it's color grading or editorial, finding scenes and being able to act on those scenes artificially through computers. We're seeing a lot of push towards that direction, automation of the data and being able to do stuff with it without human interaction.
Great, thank you. Now, let's move to round 2 in this webinar. And in particular, let's talk about use cases for M&E today and tomorrow, really with a bit of an industry focus on it in terms of how this comes to light. So Michael, I'm going to start back with you again. As we transition to whatever the net new normal is for us all, right? Will virtual production, gaming engines, interactive media remain key tenets to the entertainment production processes?
Absolutely. Those have become the new normal. They are the standard, and even before situations beyond our control, that was where the market was moving. And there are multiple reasons for that. There's the traditional approach to media where you make a set, bring the talent on, and you strike the set and hope that you don't have to remake the set to do a reshoot, something like that. In the sense, constraints are central to innovation, to creativity. However, flexibility is just as, if not more, important sometimes. And the ability to not just make a set that's captured in 2 dimensions through a camera, 1 time, 2 times, maybe a few shoots, but to truly capture that scene in its entirety and be able to not just reshoot that scene later on after months later when there's nothing left, but to bring together people in other parts of the world. That's fundamentally a groundbreaking technology. That's something that has only been made possible recently with compute advancements, with storage advancements. And that is the new standard as far as I'm concerned. Game engines have for years tried to approach photorealism, tried to approach realistic physics. Years back, they were getting there were issues. However, now with technology, the two have come together. And so at this confluence of gaming, what we consider gaming technologies, engines, and interactive media, like M&E, interactivity is the common factor between those two. The visuals, of course, as well, but the interactivity is key, and that's something that we can leverage game engines to that end. And in many ways, find new applications for this technology. It's definitely been something that's been fascinating to watch. It's been something that has seen massive innovation, and it's something that is not slowing down in terms of its trajectory.
And so from that standpoint, there was this question about these use cases, about how it's so shifted, to think that, you can go back and recognize in post-production, you have a challenge with a scene shot, and then you can recreate it, you can bring that together, you can bring the talent and all those sorts of things. We also want to know, with these virtual environments, how does that impact things on the IT side, from Kubernetes to containers to the virtual environments, all those sorts of stuff? How do you take it from the use case down to that level?
Well, at the foundation, it's data management. If you look at our infrastructure, it will look very similar to high performance compute infrastructure with a tendency towards, of course, a presentation layer that may not be present in those applications. However, our need for network performance, for data performance, are the same, if not more, than what we consider to be high performance compute applications. And going beyond that, the way that we use storage is different. The way that we use compute is different. Like I said, we've gone from an asynchronous batch operation type rendering that's done overnight, or it's done on a farm somewhere, to a real-time system. It's something where we expect certain levels of performance from this infrastructure. And so to that end, Kubernetes, Docker extensively, we have a vast environment, and at the center of that, of course, is Ethernet. And so one of the best innovations was moving away from the fiber channel infrastructure, moving away from islands of technology, and really bringing it all together, because that's the flexibility that's critical to what we do.
Now, Satish, I know there was a specific decision within Pavilion around Ethernet versus fiber channel and so forth. You want to expand a little bit on that?
So I think with more and more things like IoT coming in, it's important that people are able to use traditional or simplistic model for communicating with storage. So we thought Ethernet is the future, and Ethernet performance have gone up quite substantially. One of the biggest challenges for Ethernet was around reliability. Storage was built for storage, fiber channel. I think those hurdles have pretty much gone away. And with RDMA, I think the latencies are phenomenal.
So Ethernet at 100 gig and beyond, we're seeing performance that goes well over the fiber channel performance, yet we're seeing the reliability.
You know, I would actually pose this to Michael and Billy. Is, you know, we took the route saying, not only are we going to allow for block storage, we're allowing for file or NFS or file-based access, unstructured data, so to speak, as well as optics, giving that flexibility. Is that something that is you see as valuable, or if you pick Ethernet, you say RDMA, and I'm going with it?
Well, absolutely. One of the, I would say that this spans, beyond M&E, but at the core of every successful company, every successful implementation of technology is a reliable infrastructure, is an efficient infrastructure, and of course the ability to manage that, the ability to scale that as needs change, as innovations happen, and be able to keep up with, not just the data throughput limits, but the engineering, the creativity aspect. That's something that where flexibility is key. That's something where we put so much value, not just in how we approach problems, how we approach really developing new ideas, but a system like you described is something that is ideal for the use case. It's something that allows us to minimize the interface between creativity and outcomes. In a perfect world, technology, that interface between the input and the output is minimized. And to that end, Ethernet, something, a ubiquitous system, something you find everywhere, is, in my opinion, the ideal technology to kind of mesh everything together. It simplifies, it makes management easier. It's, as a technology, it is the focus of new innovations. As you say, it's become more reliable. We don't see partial fiber channel, partial Ethernet, some InfiniBand over here, different islands of, as I would say, technology. We see a collection of tools to be used in the creative process.
And we made a choice on going with this more microcontroller architecture, with 20 controllers inside. We stopped at 20 because we want to fit in the box. Our architecture stuff, we could go hundreds if we wanted to. Kind of like how GPUs are for CPU. We went with a microcontroller kind of architecture. And that allows us to run unique stacks for specific kind of protocols, rather than, build everything on top of files and then it's not suitable for objects or it's not suitable for blocks. So it was a very important design choice that we made based on trends we were seeing. It's good to hear you kind of reiterate that. And Billy, if I may, you're more widely looking at all other customers, M&E in general. What is your take on that? I mean, do you see various asks for different protocols?
The desire is to do all. Block is going to be your ultra performance, right? You're not going to bring volumetric capture data through an NFS protocol because of the overhead. But there's a lot of the process in post-production where you don't need the real-time performance. You need performance, but a drop frame or within the creative application, a drop frame is acceptable. Client-facing type environments are likely always going to be block level until we have full RDMA over NFS with the true numbers that are possible. But I think short term, that block level access is what they want for situations where the producers, the directors are sitting in a bay and they're watching back their film. They don't want to see drop frames. They don't expect it in a theater, so they don't expect it during the post process. And obviously with NVMe, we've seen a remarkable improvement in that performance. We're not seeing the latency of spinning disks. We don't need massive amounts of spinning disks to
absorb the latency. It's much more predictable.
Yeah, and something to be said about that specifically is NVMe in general. That, you know, we talked about a lossy network, we talked about drop frames, that's, you know, the ultimate evil of our industry. But, you know, NVMe in a well-structured system gives you flexibility. It gives you the ability to retransmit the frame before the next frame. It gives you ways to, you know, work around these things that we traditionally worried about, because, you know, if we dropped the frame, we wouldn't have time to retransmit it. If we dropped the frame, that was gone.
Yeah.
The take was over, we had to start over. The reality is now, you know, NVMe, high-speed Ethernet protocols, I mean, there's some engineering at both ends, obviously, but I think that's a small price to pay. I think that's something that we now have the headroom to really develop. I think we can rely on that in many ways, and that's worth that trade-off.
And when you talk about the Pavilion system, it's universally unmatched storage, because across the board, a block, file, and object, it's best in breed for each three, correct?
That's correct.
Satish?
That's correct. What we did was we said, for each kind of workload, let's get the right kind of stack in there. Let's build the right amount. And since we have so many controllers, all it runs is exactly the stack for the kind of protocol that we serve. That allows us to actually build the best of breed of all three protocols, and any other protocols that come in the future. I think that's the biggest value we get with our microcontroller architecture, the hyperparallel architecture, as we call it.
All right, well, gentlemen, as we reflect on the needs and the challenges of specific use cases for the industry, it's really about ingest and this output, right, that we're talking about, the need for high performance to support the needs of the business. Clearly, video is a big driver, with megapixels quadrupling from 4K to 8K. Audio is also quadrupling 5.1 4K to 22.2 for 8K. It's really about all this expansion and the storage requirements that are out there. And we're just starting to scratch the surface, right? When we think about what's possible with 12K and to create virtual world-like environments, we can just see where this industry is going to go and continue to push the momentum and the strength with it. So as we dive into round three, and specifically around the Sony Innovation Studios specifics, Michael, I want to start off with you again and say, from a business perspective, why did the group seek out a solution that was different from what Sony Innovation Studios had?
Well, with the modern workflows that we're seeing with just the technology where it's come, the traditional network attached storage, the NAS, that running, be it SMB running NFS, doesn't cut. That's not something that we can rely on for these productions. We talk about 4K, 8K. That's that's video. That's two-dimensional. Let's break this into three dimensions. I mean, it's quickly escalating. It's something where just enough is not enough. Double the potential that we have now is not enough. It's something that we need a lot more. We need essentially technology at the forefront of this. We need technology that will progress with us as we develop the workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
how big can a scene image get for you guys?
it depends on how much quality you want.
Okay, so it's infinite.
Well, within reason.
Yeah.
It's they can get large, and it also depends on how big how big physically the scene is, how detailed it is. But to your point, infinite. The limitation is really just store. It's how much can we store, how much can we process, those things, and that's why we don't just look for a solution that gives us a certain level of throughput. We look for a solution that that is at the forefront of that area, because that is what allows us to
Take it to that level.
Yeah, because the reality is we don't know. We don't know where the limit is. We can't know. But what we do know is we need flexibility. We need versatility. We need lots of performance, and that's very important. And we don't get that with the traditional network storage system.
So how important do you think was density or form factor in your consideration?
I think we look for efficiency, for efficient use of space. At the same time, for the storage system that we get with this box, we would typically have an entire server rack, at least. And the fact that we can get that in just a small box, have everything we need, in many ways that makes us rethink storage. It makes us rethink these workflows. So at the time when we were looking for a solution, it wasn't a need that we knew we would have. It wasn't something that we thought we would be interested in, but that stemmed from we didn't know it was possible. And so in many ways that became a factor.
When you think about the Sony vision you had and what you were looking for, how did you go about looking at other opportunities and capabilities?
Well, I mean, obviously we have to perform at a certain baseline. We have to have performance in 100 gig infrastructure. Obviously, to get in the front door, you need to have line level. But we're not just a traditional production house. We're not, we are trying to make new workflows. We're trying to, come up with innovations in the M&E space. And so to do that, we need to find partners who are at the forefront of their respective industries. So we weren't just looking for a box that was fast. Given enough space, anything can be fast. We were looking for something that was cutting edge and shared a common vision with us, which is to innovate in the space that we occupy, to take our expertise and not just do an incremental improvement in something that exists, but to truly innovate, to redefine the way we think about technology.
It's the partnership that comes together that allows you to create truly breakthrough solutions and innovations with that. So from that perspective, Billy, and the work that we've done with yourself and with Pixit, share with the audience what Sony was looking for, what was involved with building the solution, and what was committed and deployed.
Sure. So I think what we found in the multiple meetings that we had was the demand for performance, the demand for one machine to be able to perform at the ultimate level, and then a solution that could allow multiple machines to continue to perform at that level. So what I mean by that is to have a solution that can do 20 gigabytes a second and each machine to do 10, and then move that up to 40 and have 4 machines do 10. That was the kind of scalable linear performance that we felt Sony was looking for. And one of the challenges they gave us was we want to see a Linux client doing line rate on 100 gig. And we've had the Pavilion platform in our lab for probably close to 18 months to 2 years now. It got there by us trying to do that same thing. What is the best NVMe platform for a Ethernet infrastructure, running Rocky and latest protocols? And we spend a lot of time testing it. So when Sony brought us that challenge, quite honestly, we were ready for it because we had been working together on this for a long time. What we have in our lab is a Pixstore front-ended Pavilion platform. So we have multiple tiers of storage, obviously the Pavilion being the performance tier. And so we had the file system layer through Pixstore. We had the performance layer through Pavilion. And Michael, along with Bill and some of the other team members came in and they actually pushed us further and further, more streams, how much faster can we go? And in the end, we were almost at 12 gigabytes per second on a single Linux client. That proved that we can run line rate to a file system to a block device.
I recall there were multiple line rates taking place at once.
There absolutely was.
To your credit.
We definitely had a lot of machines proving what it's capable of doing. And then what we deployed was that solution, except larger capacity, more controllers. So the beauty of that was we had a half loaded chassis. We got it to a certain performance level and we committed to a linear scale as you added the drives. And what we delivered was exactly that. So we were able to scale to greater than 60 gigabytes per second in a single namespace. And we met, I believe, the performance criteria.
Indeed.
So Michael, as you worked with AIT, I believe in our preparation call, one of the things you talked about is the fact that you got to go into their lab, actually see it. You don't typically get to do that. Could you expand a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, as Billy said, I came to him with, the challenge of, well, show me line rate on a Linux client. And that's really, for me to consider a storage system, you have to be able to give me line rate nowadays. And surprising how many people couldn't, but and so when we went there and we saw that, I think we spent 4 hours there or something like that. That was a very long half-hour meeting, but it was not just to see a theoretical example, to see a presentation on it, or even to look at some numbers that were created. This is FIO running in a clean room somewhere that has no bearing on your use case. We saw our use case. We saw the system that we would eventually have in terms of configuration, and it was tangible. We could say, try this, try that, and that's incredibly valuable. We do develop new workflows and all that, but we also do production, and part of that is we don't have the luxury of being able to just tear everything out for a few months at a time and then bring it all back in. Right. So it's invaluable to have really not just a demo, but a test bed for that configuration. It minimizes our downtime. I recall we brought it in over, I think it was a weekend, or it was a day or two. Yeah. And it had already been configured, it already had been set up. Even the accounts were made, the shares were ready to go the exact way that we specified. And the changeover consisted of sending out an email and updating a few group policies and swapping a few cables, and that sure beats most migrations. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we built it not only to be able to prove what Michael just said, but we built our company around the idea of delivering a turnkey solution, not delivering boxes that we then turn into one on site. So we do all that work in-house to give them that exact experience.
In many ways, it was a solution, not a set of new problems, which is so often the case when we expand with new technology.
Yeah,
that's a great phrase. So Satish, from the Pavilion perspective, what was it about the Pavilion solution, the Pavilion data platform, hyperparallel data platform, that enabled AIT to meet Sony's objectives?
So there were a few of them, actually. Let's start with the first one was, you don't have to buy the whole box to start using it. You can start small and you can grow. That was very important. That allows us to seek partners, and as they continue to grow and show up more use cases, they can grow along with the product. So that was number one. And then they transfer the same kind of expectations to the customer. They basically can grow as the product can grow as the requirements grow. That was number one. Number two was, it was, as much as people think that NVMe is new technology, it took me a couple of years to understand what Fiber Channel can do. There's this, what they call, just as you have writer's block, there's innovator's block. Right? And we had made it so simple to use in terms of both our user interface, the APIs, as well as the protocol itself, the NVMe protocol. It's as simple as mounting a file system, from an administration point of view. I think keeping operational simplicity, giving performance, making sure that it's consumable in the sense you don't need to do a big and replace kind of a thing. It fits into your ecosystem. Is what enables our customers as well as partners to confidently go and, make use of this technology.
And Michael, from your standpoint, what was it about, the conversations with Pavilion that made you feel comfortable choosing Pavilion as the storage portion of the solution overall that AIT was bringing to the table?
I mean, it comes down to not just having a nice product and a nice presentation. Those are, of course, important, but having a vision of a technology, and not just a big vision with ideas, but having actually innovated with those ideas. Having that drive to innovate, having that passion about the technology, and meeting with the team, VR. It became very clear that this is something that's very important. This is something that he truly understands. It's something that I can rely on Pavilion, to provide. I can rely on your expertise. Many times we have, very advanced storage systems we look at, and you need a college degree to basically understand how to roll it out and manage it. And then we can go look at some M&E focused storage that are very easy to use, but are very undesirable for multiple reasons in many cases. And so to come across, a company that has a vision that dovetails with ours and has a solution that is paradoxically incredibly simple to utilize, yet is performing better than any of the other competitors was, I thought there was a catch, there wasn't, so that worked out. So it's been incredibly helpful. It's something that I'm glad that we were able to have happen.
So I am honored by your statement. I gotta give you this one.
Well, you put me in my place during that first meeting, and I respect that.
Thank you.
Because I'm by no means a storage expert, but the mutual respect to actually tell me if if something is wrong or ill-advised, that's very important, because early on is when decisions are made, and when someone is honest with you about those decisions, that means that they were actually looking towards a longer period. They actually care not just about the next quarter, but you're looking at the fact that we have goals, we have missions, we are trying to accomplish these things in many ways, and you're helping with that.
Thank you.
So, Michael, again, thank you so much. We're definitely extremely excited to see where your vision is going to take Sony Innovation Studios and Sony in general, and certainly appreciate being part of that over time. And so, Billy, from your standpoint, could you dive a little more into the specifics for us on what exactly was the solution that you put in with Sony?
Yeah, absolutely. So the heart of the solution, at least surrounding the storage, is Pixit Media's PixStore file system. So this is the layer that's giving the block level access out to the client. So we started with a fully populated Pavilion platform, a Mellanox Core Edge switch configuration, and then the store nodes and gateway nodes that give both block level and file level access. This turned into what was about 880 terabytes usable at over 60 gigabytes per second of performance. In fact, it's significantly higher than that, but we carved a small piece off to save for secondary testing.
Yeah, at my request, we reduced the throughput, but that was, it was beyond our original goal, and so as you said, we carved out some of it. And that goes again to the flexibility where we have a production cluster that can coexist with.
And that's kind of that multi-tenancy.
And it's truly isolated.
Yeah,
and that's something that I wouldn't dream of having that type of flexibility. I would assume we would have to roll out an entirely new system if we wanted to test one thing. But the fact that we have everything we need now to test new systems, it just speaks to the design.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, so in the end, it was a turnkey 800 terabyte, 60 plus gigabyte per second dedicated volumetric capture solution.
So, we've talked a little bit about flexibility and about scalability, about performance density, all that. But you also touched a bit, Michael, on this concept of, at the end of the day, was it easy to use? So you've touched a bit about on that, but specifically, tell us about the deployment itself. How did that go? And what have been the results that Sony has seen?
Well, in terms of ease, I can use it. That's always good. We can operate this entire system. Occasionally we call to say, hey, what's the best way to do something? Because, AIT has been very helpful throughout this, and not just bringing it in, but ongoing, being a partner and really helping us get the most out of the system. And really, the fact that our entire team can operate this box, we can create new pieces for different parts of different projects, different research. It's changed the way that we approach our workflows. It's allowing us. It cuts down on the amount of time that we wait for things. When it comes down to it, artists should be making content, developers should be, writing code. We should be engineering. We shouldn't be waiting for things. And that seems so straightforward, but there's something to be said about, fundamentally making the workflow more efficient. It's turned into one of these situations where, of course, with the pandemic, we found ourselves kind of in the middle of in a different situation than we anticipated in terms of where we thought we were going to be in terms of migrating certain technologies, but we were still able to actually do the rollout remotely, that was something that, my first instinct was to pause the rollout, suspend it until everything was over, but it was actually so easy. I did it over the phone for the most part. So it's basically allowed us to be creative, and I think we'll be seeing some very exciting things coming out of Sony, and I think both Pavilion and AIT played a very important role.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Gentlemen, this has been a great conversation. Really appreciate the openness with which you've been able to share your perspectives and the vision and the outcome where we are. For our viewers, though, I want to just come back to a specific question that you guys can resonate with them on. For those that are watching today's webinar, what should they really be aware of if they're going to try and achieve the type of performance we're talking about? Any specific insights that you have for our viewers today? Who'd like to start?
So it's technology that is mature. It's technology that is, I believe, will future-proof some of the innovations that are happening. I'm looking forward to more NVMe, more Ethernet-oriented storage. With or without Pavilion, it doesn't matter. But I think adopting new technology, new models, is something, as a technologist, I feel encouraging.
I think for me, it would be to, think outside of the box. There's so many of these pipelines and workflows that have been the same over the years because that's just what people think they can do. We want to challenge that and show what you can actually do. So when you think that 5 streams of 4K is the end of your storage performance, you can think again. It's certainly the workflows, the pipelines, the performance. A lot of what we thought was the limits has definitely been surpassed.
Yeah, for me, something I learned not just because during this entire relationship, the world changed, and making the decision to seek flexibility, to seek, a versatile solution, something that would give us options, something that we could use in new ways. In retrospect, worked perfectly in that case, but put importance on flexibility and don't marry yourself to traditional workflows, to the way that it's always been, because we've learned that it's never going to be the same every single time. And especially now, we've seen that it is investing in just in flexibility and just investing in the ability to, have options to work however you want and use a system however you want in all these new ways that we may not have thought of yet is one of the best places to put your time.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you so very much for your time, your commitment to this conversation, help bring to light to our viewers what the opportunities are for leveraging IT to really address the changing landscape within M&E. We've certainly heard on this webinar that technology is a huge enabler to the success of M&E. We've also heard how storage can process data across workloads that are just fundamentally shattering expectations in terms of the expectations that you had, and even further supplanting those expectations that you had, shattering them in terms of creating new realities for M&E organizations to leverage talent and production, as well as organizational cost savings and revenue in an environment that is truly flexible and scalable, and that can be with you over time. Which really is the essence of space, time, and money that we started off the webinar with. So thank you all very much for this lively conversation. We do have some Q&A that we're going to move to.
Wonderful. Well, what a great conversation. I want to remind all of the attendees today to please feel free and go ahead and submit questions into the Q&A. We have quite a few questions already in there, so we're going to go ahead and move forward. I want to welcome back Michael Pearce, Billy Russell, and VR Satish as we go live to the Q&A front. So let's go ahead and jump into that. I want to first start off, welcome back, gentlemen. First part I want to start off with is, we've got a question of, is this solution able to grow as needed to support large data sets? And if yes, what is the limit to which it can scale? Billy, is that one you'd like to take?
Sure, yeah, I can take that. So as far as scale, this actually can scale. When we look at the file system perspective, this can actually scale into the exabytes. When we look at the architecture of the Pavilion platform, it follows that same suit, right? So by today's standards with the hard drives that we have, we're looking at 2 petabytes in a 4U enclosure. And there is no limit. I mean, I guess your biggest limit would be how large can you scale your InfiniBand or 100 gig core, but we already know that can grow exponentially. So as far as limits, I think we're looking at kind of exabyte scale, and performance is going to, as we've discovered with this project, is going to scale linearly as well. So we're talking about getting into the range of terabytes per second rather than gigabytes per second.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We've got another question that says, I have post-production teams across the globe. Does Pavilion support VDI to the shared namespace for collaboration? I think this is probably a dual answer here. Let me start off first with Satish, and then Billy, I think you'll probably have some points of view on the workflow to add to it. Satish, go right ahead.
Sure. We have done a lot of work with respect to VDI, including working closely with VMware. Pavilion does support NFS access if that's required, so that you can boot up your images very rapidly. And one of the most important things that you need for VDI is performance, because of the nature of how IO accesses happen. And we have got customers who are literally abusing the box with the VDI, in the sense it's performing great. Thousands of VDI images using that, and specifically around M&E and how they would use VDI. I think Billy is a better person to focus on that answer. Billy?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously where we deal a lot with VDI, and specifically where I think this question may be more geared towards, is remote desktop for creative applications. And I want to take it a little bit further than just the virtual desktop portion of this. If we look at
the overall workflows that we can enable on a global scale. So the historical chase the sun type workflow where potentially a VFX project starts up in London in the morning, that data needs to be moved to LA to continue the workflow. The layers that we put on top of this through the Pix and Media infrastructure, specifically Pixstore and Ingenia, that allows a global workflow where at the end of a production day, the critical data for a project can be moved to the other location. And then when that talent shows up, the VFX artists, they would be remoting in virtual desktop to a workstation that's attached to the cluster that the data lives at now because the data has been moved. So if we're looking at this from a virtual production perspective of how do I have my data where I need the data at the time that I need it, and then how do I have a VFX artist that might be working from his home connect into a workstation and get to that data. That can be enabled from a performance perspective, absolutely, with the Pavilion platform, and then from a workflow perspective with the Pixstore solution and their Ingenia HSM product. So I think that's, if we look at it from that perspective, I think, yeah, this is an all-encompassing solution that can solve that.
Okay, great. Michael, the next one's for you. People want to know really from the customer's point of view here, what has surprised you about this solution in terms of what it's able to do that you didn't think was going to be possible at the outset?
Well, obviously the performance was higher than we originally anticipated. So that freed up a lot of our resources and flexibility in the production environment. The form factor also didn't really, it didn't really hit us until we saw it in the rack, just how small a solution like this was for such a high-speed solution with parallel access, those types of things. Really, this is the type of infrastructure that, while small, it forms a very solid core for a lot of our productions that we can use in multiple areas, multiple productions. And really, it's something that we struggle to keep up with in terms of using all of what it has to offer, but we look forward to expanding it into the future.
And speaking of which, there was a question that had been raised before, is the system dense enough to be practical to move to set locations?
Absolutely. Yeah, the form factor is definitely one of the most valuable aspects of that system. Really, it's such a small box, has an incredibly dense storage, has incredibly fast storage. And that's the type of thing that fits inside a flight case that was previously unheard of in terms of that level of storage performance as well as the capacity. It was usually one or the other if we need to go on location. This really frees up those constraints.
Okay, all right, perfect. All right, guys, a few more questions that have come in. It says, you talked about this being a great solution for capture. What kind of performance does it offer for post processes? And Billy, maybe you want to start with that and then turn it over to Michael, or?
Yeah, I think I'll take a run at it first. I think one of the areas that, and I'll use Sony as a specific example. One of the areas that they had seen the difference in performance was that with processing images using GPU, the storage was the bottleneck because GPU processing is so fast. Now we've kind of flipped that because we can get the data into the GPU. This is not even today being utilized at SIS, but with GPU Direct, we can take this storage and have a direct memory to memory copy. So we can push data rates that are well beyond what we're seeing at the 11 gigabytes per second to a single host. We can get data into a GPU for processing at, we've seen numbers in the 190 gigabyte per second into something like a DGX cluster. So we know that performance to get data into the GPU from a storage perspective used to be a challenge. I think this has lifted that challenge from the storage side and moved it to the GPU side. So massive compute capabilities when GPUs involved.
And Michael, did you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, definitely. A GPU Direct is absolutely something that, going into the future, it's a technology that we are taking very seriously. There's also implications, of course, for traditional CPU-based processing, as well as, what we would call our render pipeline, production pipeline, where concurrent access is very important, where we have a lot of things hitting the same parts of files, hitting very large directories, concurrent access, random access. So having something that is parallel does help in those areas.
Okay, great. And another question, kind of still building on this, is getting to a detail of how important is write performance in volumetric capture?
Sure. So, write performance is very important regardless of the task, but with volumetric capture, depending on the type of capture you're doing, it becomes more and more important. But if you're capturing an asset on location, it's important that you are able to ingest data fast enough to take a multi-perspective capture of a scene or of an asset, and not have the sun setting in the background, that kind of thing. Making sure that you get consistent images. And when you get into live capture, when you get into high definition capture, people, things like that, then it becomes absolutely critical.
And certainly the performance of the Pavilion box as it relates to unmatched performance, both at the read and the write level, that really separates, I believe, the Pavilion box and the system and the solution, right, Billy and Satish?
Yeah, and I think beyond that, the ability to be writing and processing, meaning reading simultaneously, you don't have the head seek issues that you always had with spinning disks. So the ability to be writing at real time and simultaneously reading at real time is unmatched for sure.
Okay, great. Satish, a question directly to Pavilion here is, so you talked about that, we've talked about the Pavilion has 20 storage controllers, 2.2 petabyte. What do you mean by start smart, start small? How many controllers, how much capacity can people really move forward with?
So the maximum limit for a single Pavilion box is 20 storage controllers, as the question points out. And the capacity depends ultimately at the capacity offered by a single drive, multiplied by a factor n. So if you're going to be using 15 terabyte drives or 30 terabyte drives, and we allow up to 72 drives inside, so 30 terabyte times 72, you're getting to 2.2 petabytes. Now that's a choice. So you can say, well, I don't want to do 30 terabytes. I want to do 6 terabyte drives. So the capacity comes down. That's one way of looking at it. The other way is you don't have to populate all the 72 drives for you to start with. You could start with a minimum configuration of 18 drives. So think about it this way, 18 drives times 6 terabytes or 3 terabytes, however you want it. You get a much smaller capacity and you pay upfront cost is much lower for starting small. The same thing on the controller side, you can start with, we have this concept of line cards. Line cards they're up to 10 line cards, and each line card has 2 independent controllers. So you could start with 2 line cards because you need availability, right? So you want to make sure that it's resilient and available. So you can start with 2 line cards and go all the way to 10. So in essence, what we provide you with this appliance is the ability for you to scale performance and capacity independently of each other. It's not like you buy one, you get the other one, like in hyperconverged environment. There's no disaggregation going on there. We allow you to do that. So in essence, look at your budget, look at what you want to get to, what the requirements are, look at where you want to be down the road, and specify the capacity and the performance needs, and you can start at exactly where you want and then grow to where you want to get to. That's the most important aspect.
Okay, fabulous. Well, this has been a great set of questions. We have a few more things just to cover real quickly that I want to cover with the audience that's online. As you find yourself thinking about what's possible, reach out to AIT and to Pavilion to open up a conversation about your specific needs and environment. You can learn more about Sony Innovation Studios and the use case at pavilion.io/Sony Innovation Studios. You'll also find more insights around the Pavilion offering universally unmatched storage and unrivaled data storage choice and control. With the pavilion.io/Sony Innovation Studios, place to go to get that case study and a lot of additional information. I also want to let everyone on the call know, or the webinar know, that Pavilion will also be presenting in 4 webinars at NVIDIA GTC 21, and the conversation of GPU Direct as it came up today. We'll be diving into much greater depth on that with the NVIDIA GTC conference. It also includes 2 sessions involving OmniSci and graph history, as well as one on virtualized environments and one on achieving high performance with a multi-controller architecture. So 4 great sessions. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to pavilion.io/NVIDIA to get more information about what we're doing at the upcoming GTC conference, to learn even more about what customers and applications are achieving with the Pavilion system. So as we conclude this, again, I want to thank all of our viewers. In addition to that, I'm sorry, I wanted to talk quickly about the fact that Pavilion also just completed a webinar with NVIDIA and HPC Wire focused on accelerating GPU-based applications. And you can access that webinar from the pavilion.io home banner that talks about it. It will take you directly to the HPC Wire website, where you'll actually be able to see that NVIDIA and Pavilion conversation around accelerating GPU-based applications. So again, a lot of additional depth of information available to you. You can reach out directly to AIT and Pavilion. You can watch more information at NVIDIA GTC, or you can also watch the HPC Wire webinar as a recast. As we conclude today's session, though, I so wholeheartedly want to thank our viewers, you all, for your time and your interest in the topic about driving performance and M&E and leveraging IT in what is a rapidly changing environment. And with that, I also want to sincerely thank Michael Pearce of Sony Innovation Studios, Billy Russell of Alliance Integrated Technology, and VR Satish of Pavilion Data Systems for this discussion. And here's to shattering your expectations in your environments. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.